Hello, everybody. Today is Friday, April the 8th. My name is Violet Barton. I'm the GSA president, and today I am very happy to have the Merced Indian Graduate Student Association for our podcast. Thank you so much. I'm going to introduce my colleague, GSA Officer Arya Rajan.
Hi, hi, I'm Arya. I'm the International Affairs Officer of GSA, and I'm also the Secretary for the Merced Indian Graduate Student Association. I'm a third year physics graduate student working with Dr. Sayanthani Ghosh. I'd like to introduce Anshika.
Hey everyone, this is Anshika Kanve. I am the Vice President of MIGSA, the short form of Merced Indian Graduate Student Association. And I am in the ES group, Environmental Systems, and this is my third year. I would like to pass on to Anu.
Hi, I'm Anu, and I'm in my third year grad school in physics department, and I work with Professor Lintian, and I'm the treasurer of MIGSA.
Okay, I am left. So, hello, I am Shubhayo Bose. I am a third year graduate student in the Department of Physics, and I'm working with Dr. Kinchal Dasbiswas. And I am the president for this year for the MIGSA.
Thank you. Welcome, MIGSA, to the GSA Podcast. I'm really excited to have you this afternoon, and I would like to start by asking you, why UC Merced? At what point in your life did you decide to come to UC Merced and the fields that you pick up? Why did you do that?
I can go first. I was at a conference when I was in India, and I got to talk to Dr. Jingzhu, and I got to learn about the research that is done in UC Merced, and that is how I got to know about UC Merced and the graduate program over here. And I gave it some thought, and I ended up here.
I can go next. For me, I think I always wanted to do PhD from my undergrad, but I think what motivated me to come to UC Merced was that my sister was here before I came. I applied to other schools also, but then I think there was a personal connection to this campus. And why this stream, environmental science, is because I was always into chemistry, and just studying about water and hydrology was something that made me very much interested in the environmental systems, and water is one of the important part. So yeah, I think that motivated me to go for a PhD. Yeah. Anu, would you like to go next?
I chose UC Merced specifically because of my advisor, Lintian. When I was researching about where to go after my undergrad, my research interests kind of perfectly aligned with what she does. And she's actually a very good researcher as well. So I think I just came to UC Merced just for to be working with her.
Can I go next? Yeah. So what interested me in UC Merced is, first of all, it was one of my professors, my undergrad advisors' first suggestion. Also, we had a couple of students from every batch before me come to UC Merced, especially in the physics department. So I've heard a lot from them as well, and it sounded like a good option. And I also had a conference, or my current advisor come to our university for a conference. And I did not talk to her specifically at the time, but one of my classmates talked to her, and he was really excited about it. So when I applied to UC Merced, I looked her up, and her research was a lot aligned with what I was interested in going further with. Yeah. So I'd go with the next question. What's your favorite thing about being a graduate student?
I can go. I think so. Before joining PhD, I was also working with one of the organization in India, where I was doing a lot of field work and also research and development work, which was interesting. But I think the best thing about doing your own research is that you get to spend 18 hours a day on your work if you want, or just 6 hours a day. But when you're in a job, you have to spend 9 to 5 working hours, and you have to live up to that 8 hours work expectation. I think this is the best part of being a researcher. You are doing things at your own time, at your own speed, but for yourself. I think that's the best motivation.
Yeah, I agree with Anshika as well. And I I also like the freedom we get to do, we get for working on the field we're working on. And we get to learn a lot of new things. We get to talk to a lot of people, learn about their research. Um, I think the culture here about the work environment here is amazing, and that helps me stay motivated and work towards further research.
Yeah, I agree too. So there's a lot of scope for collaborations across interdisciplines. I think, especially at UC Merced, which is quite unique and different from industry or elsewhere. And yeah. Arya, do you want to go?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, basically. The flexibility in work hours, as well as the kind of work that you do. And also there's a lot of room for expanding your knowledge or experience in terms of working with collaborators, or like knowing more about other people's research and coming with ideas of, mixing or hybridizing your field with other fields, especially in UC Merced, as Anna said. There's more room for that as well. Yeah.
Are most of you international students?
Yes, all of us.
We're all, yeah.
All of you.
Yeah.
I mean, the four of us here, yeah.
Yeah. And this is, for me, like, I cannot imagine what it's like to travel half a world away and with your family, friends, your food, everything, right? To come to UC Merced. What is it like to be an international student starting a PhD, which is in the fields that you're in, is highly demanding, right? Is difficult, very tough fields, and many of us don't dare to go there, but you're there. So what is it like for you to make that transition?
Personally speaking, when I came here first, I was very scared. Yeah, so there is a lot of new things which did not match up with what we had back in India. And I was very scared if I could not meet up to the expectation of my advisor, my own expectations. So, but slowly but steadily, I got over that fear, and I think I'm doing pretty good right now.
Yeah, the culture shock is a real thing. Like we get to experience it, became tangible when we moved here. And depending on different people, it takes like different time periods to get over it. I took a little longer. So
I'm still getting used to it.
and this one semester into it, COVID hit, and we didn't get enough time to calibrate ourselves to properly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was scary and exciting at first. When you're coming for the first time, you're so excited about what's going to happen. But once you're here, when the reality hits, when you're actually here, you start missing your home, your family, your lifestyle. There's so much that you have to do on your own here. So I think that's a different experience, I would say. This is something that we were not somehow prepared at the time, but now I think we have gained a lot of experiences on tackling things on our own, making good relations, and living up to the expectation of ourselves and others, as Shubhayu said. But yeah, I think the initial days were a bit shocking, very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree completely. My first year, I guess, was just my first semester, especially, was just getting used to the new environment. Because there's obviously a lot of things that's different from how it worked back in India and how it's here, and especially because I think most of us are straight out of undergrad. Um, we had to find a way how to look after ourselves, and that to a new different and we were all not friends back then, so that is where MIGSA comes into picture, where we kind of connect and form new friends, who share what our past experiences, or whom we can connect more easily when compared to, I don't know, others. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the next question we were going for. What is MIGSA about? And how is it important? And what are the cultural events that you or we are holding?
Yeah, maybe I can start and everyone else can pitch in. MIGSA was started in 2017, and at that point there were almost 43 members who helped to constitute the whole thing. They also came in together and wrote the constitution, the bylaws, and how the events and different groups should be organized. So that's something that we came to before we joined. It was already existing, and then this is a legacy we are trying to take forward, I would say, because the earlier members have worked a lot. And it's not, the best thing is that it's not just four of us or any of the office bearers who are working. We have the whole community coming together to help each other and be part in organizing events. So the whole background of MIGSA is that they wanted to create a space where people who are coming from India or any Southeast Eastern country, they can have some sense of inclusion, with also having the diversity. We have members from students and staff and their family members. And we also have students from other ethnicity, other countries. It's not just the Indian people who are part of MIGSA. It's open, it's an open group, and any graduate student from any stream, any staff from campus, they can join. And we try to make it as inclusive as possible for all of us. And for that matter, we try to bring in all the festivals and cultural events that we have in India, at least the big ones where everybody is a part of. And we try to celebrate them together so that there is some sense of feeling home away from home. I think that's one of the biggest thing for all of us who came here. And I know I had my sister around, but even for the people who came here alone, I think this was a very good start. We got a freshers party. We gave freshers party to the new people who join UC Merced, and we send this invitation for everyone, like all the international students who join, so that they can come and understand how to, get a kickstart, get to know people who are also coming from different backgrounds who with no experience. I think that is the thing that MIGSA has in its foundation, I would say. Yeah, and for MIGSA, I think even during the pandemic, we tried to connect with our community members through online events, sending them emails, through WhatsApp group, Facebook groups. So just to have a sense that even that we are sitting at home, we know that people are there to help us, that we can connect to, share our problems or happiness. So yeah, this is what MIGSA is about.
Yeah, we even celebrated Diwali virtually. We sent like Rangoli, which is like a design that we do with powders, and which it's important part of festivals. So we gave everyone powders, and then we asked, we kind of held a virtual competition, or a very informal one, just to get people to participate. And Shibuya here won. He's a really good artist.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell us about
I
the art.
He wasn't president at the time, so that was not right.
Yeah, he was president.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was not the president at that time. Yeah, I think most of whatever Anu and Anshika said covered what is what why MIGSA and what we do in MIGSA. And I just want to add one more thing. That's just the events that we organize in MIGSA. They are to uphold the Indian festivals in UC Merced, and also help people from all over the world learn about why and what are these festivals.
Yeah, it's like a exchange of cultural exchange, basically, between the Indian community and the rest of Merced community. Yeah.
And it's very satisfying when people from other countries, they take part. They also took part in cultural events, in singing or playing instruments during our cultural events, or even wearing the same cultural dress. I mean, that is so satisfying for us to connect to people beyond Indians. That's very satisfying. Yes.
I agree. I think it's so enriching, and it just diversifies UC Merced in ways that we cannot begin to appreciate enough what it means to have these different groups, right? Ari, I don't know if you wanted to add to that question.
To the question or answering it?
Yeah, answering, yeah.
For me specifically, and I know this is true for most people, when we entered MIGSA, was like, all the members of MIGSA was a huge help. Like when you're entering into a completely different university, actually, as you said, the other side of the world, completely alien to everything here, and having people who went through the same process and all to guide you and talk you through most of the things that you have to do, since you have to do it alone, that was a huge relief. And they were all really helpful. They were more than happy to help, and we hope to be able to give it forward to the incoming students further too.
Yeah, that is awesome. I mean, if we think about, right, we're still in the pandemic, right? And most of you have already been here a little bit before the pandemic surge. But what does it mean to you to be at UC Merced, in the Merced community, in the midst of a pandemic? What are the new challenges that come up for you? during this time, and how do you make it through? Because I know it's been tough on everybody, but I cannot imagine for people who are far away from loved ones, right? How does that impact you and your work and your cultural celebrations that you're beginning to talk about?
So yeah, as you said, a pandemic hit started in March 2020, and we had all just come in like fall 2019, at least the four of us here. And on a personal front, I didn't go back home until last summer. And that was like, so basically 2 years being away from family, which was so hard. It it took me to another level of stress which I hadn't experienced before, and um, obviously it affected my work. So I asked my advisor if it's okay to just take a break for 1 month, and I just went home. Despite the pandemic travel bans were still going on last summer, but I just couldn't stay away from home. So um, yeah, it's a it's very difficult, especially for international students who with the pandemic. But I think now it's better because I think the travel bans or restrictions are at least not there for F1 students, so we're able to travel to and back from India.
I think what Anu said, we all experience those emotions and feelings that we had never experienced, because
Yeah.
none of us have been living away from our family for so long. And that was not just it, not just meeting your family, but also being cut off from your friends, from your social group. Even in Merced, I think that was also a big challenge for us, even though we tried to bring things online, but then having everybody's different schedule, it was difficult to catch up, right? uh, but yes, all of us had some difficult times, and it just added to the mental health problems, not being able to share everything with your family because they are also distressed. You don't want to give them more stress, you will just add to the problem. And not being able to share here also because you are away from people. um, I think it was a big challenge, and for me also, my advisors were very supportive enough. When I had some distressing time, they just asked me to take a few weeks off and cool down and just come back when I'm ready. I think that those are the kind of support that we all need, and we were not prepared or even expecting that these things can come. So yeah.
Yeah, we had totally different expectations when we arrived in US. And things got out of. But again, yeah, I went back home like after 2.5 years, and the longest I stayed away from home before that was 2 months. Not even in a different state. So it was like extra hard. But I could say that I went like everybody else. We went through a really difficult time, especially when one of your family members get affected by COVID, or that's a especially scary circumstance that you have to stay away so far and be helpless. But I had people here who I could like not physically be near, but call and talk me through or something. And in that case as well, this community has come in really helpful. Even though we couldn't meet in person, the connections we made through this community pulled through strongly, and that was really helpful.
Yeah, on a personal note, my research really took off during the pandemic. So I have no complaints with that. Um, but yeah, so during the very beginning of the pandemic, it was very hard, and I think I did not even get out of the house for maybe weeks. And yeah, so when it things started to get a little bit better, we formed a small group within the community and started hanging out on Saturdays, and that was kind of relaxing for me at least. Um, but although the group did not last very long, but at that time it was really helpful for me.
Yeah, I think talking about research, some of us like got affected really bad with the uh, travel restrictions, or even coming to the lab where you had most of your setup. I think that thing affected a lot of people. But for some, like those who are doing computer simulations, like think that was that was not that problematic, I would say. But yeah, it did affect everyone at different levels.
Yeah, personally for me as well, the research took a big hit. Especially I had just moved into my lab with this advisor, and I didn't even get a chance to, get familiar with the lab or the people or my colleagues. And that was the start of took almost a year and a half for me to actually settle into the lab because of the pandemic. But my advisor was really understanding, incredibly understanding and very supportive. So might not be true. Like everyone might not be as lucky. I managed to get through because of my advisor support.
Yeah, I think we all have kind of learned new learnings from that pandemic, right? And different, what it means at different levels, personal, professional, etc. But during this time, and you talked about the importance of having community. So I know that you mentioned that one way MIGSA creates community through cultural celebrations. I know you recently had Holly. Can you talk about it? Tell us what it means and what happened during that 1 year that we were quarantined. What does it do, to disrupt this tradition, right? How did you cope with that? But we want to know about, what does it feel like to come back this year and actually celebrate?
For us, we have three main and big events. One is Holi, which we celebrate in March or Feb. And we have Diwali, which we celebrate in the mid of fall semester, around October, November. And the third one is Garba, which is again in fall. So most of these events require for people to come together. We have different dance forms for Garba. Come together as a community in a group and do those dances. We have Diwali where we bring in culturally it is like exchanging sweets and happiness, meeting your family during this time. For Holi too, it's like meeting your friends and family, playing with colors. So these have very strong, cultural importance, connecting with your friends, peers, relatives. I think when this got disrupted due to COVID, I think the first year we were not able to even think what we can do, how we can come up with these things. But then MIGSA members, all of us realized that I think it's important to at least try and make those connections. We may have to push other people, ourselves, do something. But we tried to do the celebration for Diwali. We did that Rangoli competition where we distributed colors, so whatever we had in our stock, and we purchased gifts for the winners. We also tried to, I think for Holi we were not able to do much. But yes, we
I
just
think
tried to do, yeah.
for Holi, didn't we like send packets of or offer to give packets of color so they can celebrate within their COVID bubble or something?
Bubble, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We did some color distribution.
So it was a little bit modified in order to be able to practice a little bit.
Mm.
Because some of these things you are not able to find even in Merced, like those colors and lights that we use during Diwali. So we tried to just um, facilitate that whatever we had from our past events, and whoever can make it to go to stores, father stores. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please add if you have anything.
It's especially was difficult celebrating Holi because um, so for Diwali, it's like decorating our houses, lighting candles, all these things. So which is pretty much what people do for Christmas as well. So that was not very difficult, but yeah, we could not talk to many people. So we organized online event to gather people and talk to them. But especially for Holi, which requires physically being there and um, playing with colors, having the time of the life. uh, uh, that was not possible within small groups because there will be hardly 3 or 4 people, and having Holi celebration between this 3-4 people is probably
Boring.
not what you're looking for in Holi.
Yeah, it's supposed to be at least 10-15 people, and then all of us are jumping.
Yeah.
And how would you describe the significance of these events of Holi and Diwali? Like, for people who don't know, how would you describe it? What does it mean?
Well, Diwali is also called the Festival of Lights, as Shubhendu said. And basically, again, as Anshul said, we just come together, do a lot of cultural events, songs, dances, or whatever talent you have to show, and like interact more with people. Just a way of celebrating once a year.
Good
And
food.
Holi is like, sorry?
Good food.
Yeah, good food.
Good
Very
food.
important. That's one time of the year where you can get good Indian food as a meal and eat as a whole community.
Yeah, if I may add, so all these festivals actually hold some mythological importance in India. So culturally, even though India has diverse culture, right? Even though we have different names for these festivals, somehow we have the similar foundation, similar stories behind it, and all of them have the one essence that this is the day when evil won. Oh, sorry, good won over evil through some mythological stories. And these are the days when we have not just cultural importance, but also in terms of changing seasons or harvesting seasons, starting of a new year, with different cultures. So they have those such importance also. So when you are going to have harvest season near Holi, that's how it's been. That's when you share food with your community, and everyone comes together to celebrate the new beginning of the year. So it's not just for us it's a fun thing, but then culturally these things hold much more importance than we are able to showcase. But this is something that we also try to share during our events. We try to give them the background through some videos or some whatever anecdotes that we have. What is the significance of celebrating Diwali? That's when the from you know Lord Rama won over Ravana when there was a huge fight. So there are some mythological stories behind this that we have heard.
I feel, I really do appreciate it because through my work that I do for other groups, right, I understand how this is thousands of years of traditions that come to life, right? So I really do appreciate that work that you do. Despite, I understand that it's not easy to find the lights, and especially during the pandemic. Maybe not all the food is accessible here in Merced, I don't know. But I know that in the past, we have had conversations, right, with friends about some challenges that we find in the transitioning moment when you'll arrive and diet, right? Because we have had events on campus that don't necessarily cater with the food choices that you'll need to have, and we have struggled, like how do we become more inclusive, how do we educate ourselves, how do we support you more, so that we don't, by in error, right, by mistake, give you something that you cannot eat or is not necessarily what you're expecting or used to eating, right? So, and I think that's a very important conversation. It may seem trivial to have, but I have had a friend whose only choice of food was a few leaves of spinach because everything else was vegan or appropriate diet, right? So how do I myself become more inclusive as a member of the UC Merced community, right? To when I do an event, let's say as a GSA, how do I think about all those things to make sure I include you and make you feel welcome?
Um, it's, I think, very personal. Though as a community, um, it could be said that they don't, eat a few. For example, a large portion of Indians are vegetarians, so they don't eat meat of any form. But I know people who are vegetarians there after coming to US, started eating meat or whatever. So I think it's more personal than attributing a cultural notion to diet.
To
So
every
just maybe asking a poll for the people who come in, that should do.
Yeah, thank you so
Yeah,
much for that, because
yeah,
a lot of people are
yeah.
afraid to ask, and a lot of them assume, and other ones just don't know if it's offensive to ask. And I think it's always good
No,
to ask.
yeah, sure,
Also,
of course.
Yeah, one thing that it was a bit shocking for us is that in India, for us, vegetarian food means milk products and whatever greens, grains, whatever you have. Egg is not considered as vegetarian, or fish is also not considered. Any of the seafood is not considered as vegetarian. But when I came here, egg and fishes, they were like, "Oh, those are part of vegetarian food." Oh, really?
I bet.
That was
I did
shocking.
not know that.
Yes, yes. I have been familiar with someone saying, "Oh, it's vegetarian. It's lettuce and cheese," and I was thinking, cheese is not. But I think those are the things we need to, like, on our end, learn, right? And when we don't know, I'm glad you're telling us that we can ask, and that way we can learn and
Yeah,
do
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, some
I
people
can
might
get
have
one.
some health issues as well. So they might have some food restrictions. So yeah, so I think sometimes we not of we try to do a poll, but not exactly in the form of formal Google polls or um, something like that. Yeah, so we just ask them informally, like what kind of food would you like to have, something like that.
Yeah, I really like that, right? When in doubt, ask. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
It
Thank
was a very considerate question, I would say. I mean,
yeah,
Mm,
this, even though it doesn't sound big, but I think food is a big part of the culture. And then if you want
mm,
to bring in some inclusion, it's an important factor.
Yeah, I think for any group, right? Food is huge, and it's especially difficult if you're making this huge trip and it's taken hours and you haven't slept well, and you're coming to a new place and you're nervous, and then there's not the right food for you.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think we're just trying to understand more how we can be, participants in this inclusion, right? Like you tell us, we ask you, but also just to be mindful, right, that different groups, different people have different traditions, right, and cultural values. So, and food is so important.
Mhm.
Aria, do you want to ask a question? Or?
I can't think of any right now.
How about we talk about your research project? I know that you talk in general in your schools, your different schools, but tell us about your research projects and what is your hope for the future with your research? What are you hoping to do?
Yeah, I can go first. So I work with microscopic particles, or cells, if you may. So I look at the migration of these cells on some elastic substrate or something like a body tissue. So how the cells migrate on those tissues. So that is what I'm currently looking at. So this might be helpful in understanding how some kinds of wounds on your body heal, or it might also be useful for understanding uh, um, cancer situations. Um, so I'm currently looking at that, but I want to broaden my scope by understanding more about these cells and how they migrate on not just elastic substrate anymore, but uh, but in different kinds of medium. Or I want to also look at some nanoparticles and how these nanoparticles can show migration for different purposes.
I work on mainly nanomaterials. Well, I started my work based on nanomaterials. I started with quantum dot-based nanovesicles that can be used in targeted drug delivery. But while working on that project, we got to this really interesting deviation where we started focusing on certain organic luminescent materials. And now I'm currently working on how to tailor those for specific needs, as in light emitting devices and lasers and stuff. So it's like further into the project where we can actually achieve that. But yeah, that's where I am at right now, developing those molecules and characterizing them. And I'm working in collaboration with a chemistry professor.
Do you want to go? Okay, so I work on theoretical quantum optics. It's just basically using the fundamentals of quantum mechanics, which is like the physics of small objects, like atom-like objects. And so I use quantum mechanics to understand and build quantum networks. Essentially, quantum networks do the same thing as, a classical network, where it helps to facilitate transfer of information, but with 100% privacy and security, which cannot be assured by the current classical modes of communication.
So as much as I respect physics and but yeah, those things were going a bit above my head. So I am part of the environmental systems. I have my background in hydrology and water management. So right now I am doing research on studying the climate of the impact of climate change on agriculture in the Central Valley, California. So how the rising temperature or the increasing CO2 levels are going to affect the overall water used by the crops, and also the eventually the yields by these crops. So how it may affect the farmers, and with the changing policies under Sustainable Groundwater Management or Land Act, how these can eventually affect the growers and also consumers. So these are the things that we can apply it for.
Wow. I am like, wow. As much as I feel that hydraulics, it's way over my head, right? Just to show all the work you do is so impressive, and I'm really appreciative that we have the brain power at Merced here to do these kind of things that I don't do, because it's so important that we all these things that you are working on are so critical. So I'm very impressed about your research. Ari, I don't know if you want to talk about the next question.
Yeah. So, do you have any advice for undergrads interested in research?
I think it really starts in the early stage sometimes. That if you want to, at least for me, it started way early that I really wanted to get into higher studies and, do research, even though I was not sure which field. But I think I have landed in the best field I could have wanted for myself. Um, and sometimes it just develops while you are doing some project, or maybe some helping someone with their work as just an or attending a seminar sometimes, or a conference. Sometimes those things motivate. So yeah, I think my advice would be to have an open mind always, because for myself also, I try to explore my interest, how if I just want to work with the industry, or government to in the water sector. But then I realized, no, I really need to get more qualification. I'm interested in learning more. So I think keeping an open mind is very important.
Yeah, I would say like use as many opportunities as you can get to get familiar with as many fields as available, or at least within the area of interest that you are currently in. Also, as Sancho said, keep an open mind. It's more than grades and all, it's these experiences and opportunities to interact, as well as know what is out there and how much you can practically contribute to or take pleasure in knowing more about. That's gonna drive you.
Yeah, because at the end of undergrad, you would have already kind of chosen what you want to do. But there's always scope for change after you go to grad school as well. So, because if you find another topic, or maybe another completely different field that you're interested in, it should be open to change. And yeah, it's scary, but I think they need to kind of assess what they really want to do, and that can help. Yeah.
My advice would be to be excited about things that you want to learn. Otherwise, it's of no use. I think I was talking to a friend of mine about a bouncy ball that I have. I don't know what it's called exactly. So after bouncing it, I could feel some vibrations on the ball, and he said that he could not. And I asked another friend of mine, and he also could not feel. She also could not feel the vibration. I was thinking, why is it? Is it some frequency that only I am capable of feeling or something like that. So I started looking up what frequency it is vibrating, but till now I am I have nothing. So yeah, I would just say it's a general thing that if just try to get excited about stuff.
One more thing that I want to add, I think Arya said about it's not just the marks or the grades that you get. Um, for me, I was never the topper of the class. I was always an average or above average student, but not extraordinary. And this is something that my professor in my undergrad told me. She was like, don't think that just because you are not getting 90% in your exams doesn't mean that you cannot do research, because I was not sure that if I can be a good researcher, what I wanted to be. She said that most of the students that land in research are actually the mediocre or the average students, because they are more passionate about their work. The best of all, they just get into something that that actually satisfies them. But then for most of the people, most of the things don't satisfy them, so they try to explore more. That's what researchers are doing. So just don't ever get discouraged by the grades that you're getting.
Yeah.
I love that advice, because I mean, I bounced 1,000 balls in my life and I never thought about the vibrations. Only Shivashi would, but I think that is such a, in what you're saying, right? Don't get discouraged by any, like, your grades, because you have to love what you do, right? You have to have passion to be able to withstand all the challenges that come with grad school, the distance from love, family, and loved ones, the change of culture. You have to love what you're doing, right? So, and I wanted to close by asking you if there's anything else you want to share with us about MIGSA, or why it's so important to have this space. But also, I wanted to highlight a little bit Aria's work as a GSA officer and her experience, right, as a GSA officer, because I also want to kind of put it out there for all of you to think about running for GSA officer. So I want to start asking Aria that question. What has it been like for you to be a GSA officer? And what would you tell your fellow students, members of MIGSA too, about running for GSA? How was that for you?
I think I started as GSA officer like in the middle of the pandemic, when the previous officer was holding my position graduated. So I had a lot of guidance from her personally because I was friends with her as well. So starting off was easy, but keeping track of the duties and stuff was kind of slagging off because again, I was away from home for so long and I wasn't functioning that well. So for a period, I was thinking that maybe I shouldn't be like, I'm not capable at this moment to hold this position, but there were people who were helping me out as well. And at the time, it wasn't so demanding. But now it's starting to get to a position where I should like get more involved. And the other GSA officers have been very supportive and very helpful, uh, especially, yeah, most of them. I can't think of a specific name. Everybody's been equally and incredibly supportive. So working with in as a team to, dispel your duties and all, that's been good. And I'd say for me, it was a little hectic keeping track of stuff because I've been taking courses and TA with this. So yeah, I like you have to keep time aside, and if you are actually planning to commit to the position. Yeah.
Thank you. How about you all? What do you think about, anything else you want to say about MIGSA, or your thoughts about running for GSA? I mean, I don't know. I just put it out there because I see you as leaders, right? And I want to give credit, since we're speaking about the international position officer that was created by a former PhD student, now Dr. Jibanahal from Nepal, right? He was the first one to advocate for us in GSA to have that space. And I'm really grateful that Arya stepped up and was our GSA officer for international students during this pandemic, which has been really awful, right? And so I just want to, as leaders of the Indian community at Merced, I want to like encourage you to continue filling in the role. And I know it's been demanding, right? It's been hard. It's been difficult during the pandemic, but people have made it through and they have been keeping space and advocating for the needs of international students. Only if we have, students in that position, then we can do some advocacy work and represent. So it's really important.
I think it's amazing to be part of some club, some cultural organization, or some organization which is advocating for um, uh, our position, because I think it brings in this sense of responsibility, and also leadership, as you mentioned. Like, you try to do something for others too. And then even if you're making mistakes, you have people around you to help, and then that brings a lot of experience. I think for myself also, being part of MIGSA for 2 years, it was it was very good. I think I was committed to it, and also um, it made me sometimes go out of my comfort zone, and then take responsibilities for things. I think everyone should join one of these positions while um, they're in the graduate experience. It's very satisfying sometimes.
Yeah, I haven't given much thought to being a part of the GSA, but when you're hosting some event and you have been giving a lot of time and a lot of efforts for hosting that, and people finally show up and they get involved in these events, that's when you feel the most rewarded.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would
that is
agree.
very rewarding.
Maybe going forward, we we can try and join some position, because I think that's also a very good um, learning experience.
Yeah. But I think, having your feet in two worlds like us, right, as a GSA officer, but also as a member of MIGSA, she brings the space, she connects the spaces together. And, especially for new students coming in, they come a little bit disoriented, not knowing what's there, and she can be that resource. And so I really appreciate you having that presence on campus and bringing all the cultural awareness and inclusion to UC Merced, because I think it's highly important, right, that we have these communities where we feel that we belong and we find support during difficult times, which are many.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important space because that's where we celebrate the good things, right? We pass our combine exams, we do this, we graduate, etc., and we create friends for life. I really love what you do, and I really want to thank you on behalf of GSA for your time and sharing your thoughts about the work that you do. I think it's very important work.
Thanks to you for giving us the opportunity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're hoping that more people would join and help to expand our community.
Yes,
Everyone's welcome.
I think we have to each do it because no one else will build community for us. We have to build our own communities, right? And
Yeah.
it's a little bit of work, but it's like you all said already, very rewarding.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody. I want to thank you again on behalf of GSA for your time and
Thank you.
sharing a little bit about MIGSA with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.